Could be bad.
Okay, let's begin with a blessing here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Today we're going to talk a little bit about rabbis.
Yay.
One of your favorite topics.
One of my favorite topics for sure. So it's a short chapter, but there is a lot in it. And let me start with a conversation that I had with my colleagues from our radio show. You know, we have this show that is called An Imam, a Priest, and a Rabbi Walk into a Bar. Well, we need to switch the name of the show. Because of the bar, the Imam cannot go into the bar. So now it's called An Imam, a Priest, and a Rabbi Walk into... So sometimes we walk into a library, sometimes we walk into a classroom, sometimes we walk into a synagogue. So we were talking about, you know, our different roles in the community, and interestingly, we all agree that our main role is as educators and teachers, and I think that's part of what the main idea behind a rabbi is. Right? So a rav is someone who is not only ordained and is not only someone who, or a rabbah, right? So today we have female rabbis that are very successful and very good. So it's not only to lead services and the pastoral component of the vocation, but it's mostly to educate and to serve. For me, it's to serve as a role model to others and to serve as a role model for the community. And we are very lucky to have great rabbis in the community. Actually, that's one of the blessings that we have here in Fairfield, and I would say Fairfield County, that we all get along. You know, when you go to some places, some other places around the world or some other places around the country, you see that there is a huge division among rabbis or clergy, right? I know it was not like this. Always. I'm not going to get into detail.
Would you say that such an interfaith thing would happen in Santiago?
Yes, not with the intensity that we have it here. Probably not with the openness that we have it here. But it's interesting because we no longer, or I don't like to talk about dialogue. Mm-hmm. I like to talk about trialogue today. Mm-hmm. So dialogue used to be between Christians and Jews, period. Today, we have a trialogue between Muslims, Jews, and
That's
Christians.
Great.
And I think that enriches a lot the conversation, and that brings a lot to the table. So I think it is possible in Latin America, and it's possible other countries around the world, but we enjoy a freedom of religion and a freedom of speech in this country that gives us a big chance to do things like what we are doing now. And the other thing is that you have to find an organization or an institution that would support it, right? And not all institutions would do it. And I'm talking from a Jewish perspective. I'm not sure that all the Jewish, organizations are willing to host a trialogue or a dialogue. Mm-hmm. Some of them would say, yeah, let's focus first in Judaism and let's educate our kids or our families Jewishly. And then when we get there, we will open it up, to go and reach out to other religions. So you need also, and here we are doing it as part of a Sacred Heart University initiative. And Sacred Heart is based in this intellectual Catholic tradition, which is very open and embraces this idea. And I think that Fairfield University is the same, because Jesuits are very open for this dialogue.
Yeah.
Within the Catholic and the Christian world, I'm a big fan of Jesuits, by the way. I had very good experiences meeting many of them in Latin America. They are very big in Latin America. Yeah. And here, too, I'm close to Father Siminski from Fairfield Prep. Right. And Charles Allen from Fairfield U, Charlie, and many others that we work together every week, and you are doing great things together. So, you need that openness.
Who was on the radio show with you?
What's that?
Who are the two other clergy on the radio
So
show?
I have Father Tony Ciora. He's the VP of the Catholic department at Sacred Heart.
Uh-huh.
He worked in Fordham University, and he has a lot of experience working as a clergy in universities and congregations. And then the Imam, his name is Gazmen Aga. He's from Albania.
Wow.
Uh,
And does he have a congregation in
Uh-huh.
Bridgeport?
In Waterbury.
In Waterbury?
Yeah, he leads the
Interesting.
mosque in Waterbury.
Huh.
Do you
That's
find
interesting.
the Orthodox rabbis are participating in either a dialogue or trialogue as well?
I haven't heard of that
I mean,
here.
how are they doing just with the rabbinic colleagues?
Well,
Depends.
that's another element of the discussion, right? So I think that there is an openness in our community for this dialogue or trialogue, but I think there is also an openness for a dialogue within Judaism, and I think that
Yes.
all the branches, and that's part of the richness of Fairfield and Fairfield County, I would say, that we get along and we get very nice, all together, Orthodox rabbis from the community, the Chabad rabbi, and the Reform colleagues from Bnei Israel, and the conservatives, and we get together at least every other month or every month, and we have had some initiatives together that we have done. So it's
So
good.
Does Mr. Allen organize that for you guys?
Is it,
That would be the Father Al.
the
Father
Father,
Allen
yeah.
organized all the Jews
Yeah.
to get together.
No.
To get together. No, but and then at the same time, a third initiative is what we call the Fairfield Clergy Association, right? That
Yes.
gathers clergy from the town of Fairfield. So, and we've had some activities here. So you already know Alida Ward from Greenfield Hill, David Smollett, and Mark Christopherson, who's actually coming here to one of our
Oh,
study
yeah,
groups.
I met him not this time.
Apparently
but
his
the
father
last
was
time.
not doing
From
well.
our Savior's Lutheran
Yes,
Church.
correct.
Very nice.
And Dana Yanello. Well, it's a nice bunch of
But for many
full
years,
group
we've
and
had
people who work there.
interfaith Thanksgiving and Holocaust remembrance.
Correct. So I think that's something that as a rabbi is it's very important, because ultimately you are the face of the community and you are the face of the Jewish tradition. And sometimes, I feel that pressure on my shoulders when you are invited. Some people say, we're going to invite you to represent Judaism.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Right. So, but then, for example, a topic such as abortion or organ donation, right? And
Yeah.
I experienced this in Chile and in a certain degree also here. They invite you because they want to know what's the Jewish perspective on
Yes.
abortion, what's the
Right.
Jewish perspective on organ donation, what's the Jewish perspective on euthanasia, So then you say, okay,
Well,
what
there's
I'm
more
going to
than
say,
one-
because
there's
there
more
is
than one
more,
perspective.
there's more than one. So I always try to say, listen, you have to know that there are a number of options, there are a number of readings of the text. So I'm going to share with you my opinion and my vision, how I understand
Right.
Jewish tradition.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Which is the same thing that I do with my students at Mercaz, or the same
Yes.
thing that I do with you. I always, tell them, and I tell you, listen, there are different options. There are many different ways how to understand one topic. But I'm going to share with you my perspective, and I'm going to share with you my view, right? And how I understand it from a Jewish perspective. So it's interesting that there are female clergy who participate, in these meetings, and we have female clergy who are here in our area as well. And actually, I understand that a female rabbi served here at Congregation
Oh,
Bethel
Dana
and
Dana
Dana
Bogats.
Bogats, right? She was very successful. She was very good.
Assistant
So.
Rabbi and I think education director.
And Rabbi Rowley was with us too, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the richness of who we are, and this is a modern phenomenon, right? We know of educated women who are in the Talmud. For example, Bruria, who was the wife of Rabbi Meir in the Talmud. We know the daughters of Rashi that were very well versed and learned. But to talk about female rabbis, it's a modern, development
Yes.
in Jewish tradition. And today, even within the Orthodox world, they talk and they see, and some of them are ordaining.
They are ordaining
Yeah,
women?
female
That
female
I call them
clergy.
something. They call them
Different
something
things,
else?
right?
They
Right.
can't do the same things?
Oh, no,
Some
They can
things,
do
yes,
some things,
no.
oh,
Something.
really, not everything.
right.
Dana posted on Facebook yesterday.
Dana Boget?
Dana, yeah,
Mhm.
something for rabbis, a get out of meeting
Meetings.
card, like like a get out of jail card in
Monopoly.
in Monopoly. A rabbi could get, if you get a get out of meetings card, you can use it for this meeting.
That's yeah. So when we think, and I'm going to pass this chapter around. It's a short one.
How
But
do you pick topics at the radio show?
how what?
How do you pick topics at the radio show?
Wow, that's a very good question. So we have an email address where people send us email and they suggest, some topics. They complain, of course, and they challenge us, which is good. We like that. But at the same time, some topics are more current, others are more traditional. So, for example, we were,
Is this on WSHU?
yeah.
And when is it on?
So now we're going to upload podcasts to
Ah.
it. So shortly we will upload 5 or 6 podcasts that we were recording. So I'll let you know. I'll circulate the link. So
it's
some
not
some
live.
topics are, for
Is it
example,
live?
today it's they are available on the Sacred Heart website.
Ah.
So
Is it a call-in show? Like, do people ask you questions?
No, not
Oh,
yet. Not
okay.
yet. Not yet. Not yet. We hope to get
Yeah.
there at a certain
Would be
point.
interesting.
We'll try. So topics such as immigration, right? So yesterday we recorded a chapter about fundamentalism, for example,
Ah.
in religion, right? How to deal with it and what's going on in the Islamic world, in the Christian world, in the Jewish world, for sure, right? Or we talked
That's
about
gonna be
the other time we talked about family. Is marriage and the family institution in crisis?
Mm,
That's so
interesting.
interesting. So kind of
Did you
topic.
come to a conclusion?
Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit about commitment and the lack of commitment and how we can find a renewed meaning to family. And
Right.
my take was, maybe we have to come to a new definition of family.
Mhm.
Family, for us and for my generation and your generation, clearly will be something different from what it's going to be to my children.
Yes.
Right? So we think that a family, and I'm not gonna get into details, but we believe, or we when we were growing up, a family was a father, a mother, and children. Right? So today the definition of family is a father, and children, a
Right.
mother, and children, or a single mother or a single father who adopted kids. Right? So
Or
the
an
different
unmarried couple. that
unmarried
has-
couple. Right? So it's different models of family, and how do we deal with that from our traditions?
Yeah. My
Right.
daughter has very close friends. They've been together for a very long time. They have 2 children. They have absolutely no plans to get married.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure why. I don't know them well at all.
Well,
They're
because in the
incredibly
studies
lovely
show that
people.
millennials are pushing, and they are delaying
Yeah.
their marriages.
I'm just not sure if you want to have children together, there are so many protections that follow marriage.
Legal things.
Legal
Legal
things,
things.
yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what the conversation would be about that, I guess.
Interesting.
Maybe they're waiting for the laws to change.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah,
that
maybe.
going back to our topic today, I think that part of the rabbi's role is try to give some guidance about those topics that are super pressing today for our society, right? And try to give a balanced perspective from Jewish texts.
Right.
And try to be intellectually honest with you, what you feel, what you think, but at the same time trying to give a balanced guidance to your congregation, and that's part of.
Are divorce rates about the same between Jews, Christians, and Muslims?
Yes, they're about the same. I heard it was
Muslims too?
50%. In the United States?
50%.
Yeah,
But in
50%.
the Muslim population also?
I don't know. I don't know the numbers. I don't know the numbers. So let's take a quick look here to what Rabbi Telushkin has to say about rabbis. You know, I was reading the other day some Jewish jokes, and I came across this joke that ladies said, you know this one, right? That ladies are talking. Now, what's the profession of your son? Wow, he's a super great engineer. Oh, the other one said, yes, he's a great architect. And then it's a rabbi. A rabbi? What profession is that for a nice Jewish boy? You know, so see, yeah, what profession or vocation is that for a nice Jewish boy? You know, it's we're gonna see some things here that are true, and you know, the rabbi said, I know I learned a word in English, fishbowl,
Yes.
right? So it's like you are
In the fishbowl.
in the fishbowl all the time, right?
You
And
are.
people are looking at you, and they're, which is
gotta be
on one hand it's a challenge, but on the other hand, you know, if you are comfortable doing it, you could serve as a role model for others.
That was Jack Bloom's book.
Yes.
Thesis
What?
for his
PhD.
The rabbi as a symbolic exemplar.
Exemplar. Right.
Yeah, I discussed it with him many times, Zichrono Libracha, and well, we called him the rabbi, or he called
The rabbi.
himself,
The
right?
rabbi's rabbi.
The rabbi's rabbi,
Right.
and it's true. He was
We talked
Sweet
about
man.
walking
Did he
in
treat a lot of
sunshine.
rabbis?
Yes.
yes,
He did?
yes,
And he-
yes,
and
yes,
he-
yes.
And he
Counsel.
spoke
No kidding.
in the Reform movement also.
Oh yeah,
Right, very
it's in
much
all
so,
the seminaries.
Reform-
Yeah,
In the Reform movement.
Yeah.
But he talked about going into the supermarket
In
and
the
having
sunshine
to
market.
to remember everybody's name and you know how everybody is feeling, etc. Because if you run into a congregant and you don't know what it is, you still have to smile and
And even if
Pretend you
it's
know
not
it
a
is.
congregant, right.
you should have a life outside of your pulpit.
Very
Yeah.
hard though.
yeah, yeah. Okay, let's take a look to.
You know, it's the same in any profession, because if you go to a cocktail party, people are asking doctors for medical opinions, they're asking
Yes.
accountants for tax advice.
True.
And lawyers, I mean, it's
How
the
does
same.
my iPhone work?
They ask you for.
No, there's-
Technology.
I never
Yeah.
used to get questions about math problems.
Oh.
But you know what's the
Don't worry,
difference?
Now you've revealed
Um,
you're the person to go to.
The difference is that
Well,
your kids are not the accountant's kids, and your
Ah,
kids are not
not
the
the-
lawyer's
correct.
kids, and your wife is
Exactly.
not the lawyer's
Ah,
wife.
that's right.
So
that part is
here
very
is it's the whole family, and sometimes it's hard.
That's one of the advantages of Ramah. Because all these rabbis' kids can come and
Right.
just kids,
Oh, they're just
right?
kids,
They're
yeah.
just
Right.
kids.
And the rabbis can come and work on the maintenance staff, or you know,
Right. Little
something
laundry.
else, or the
Right.
or the sports staff.
Yes.
and not
Yes,
necessarily be
yes,
a rabbi.
that's right.
nice.
One of my friends whose father was a cantor, you know, used to say that whenever she went to synagogue, she had to sit in the front row and behave herself, or his job was on
And-
the line.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. So as you can tell, I tell the same to Ari, right?
Yeah.
Ari runs everywhere with chocolates and you know.
Gornish
up-
Telfin, as they say.
Although
What does
he's
that mean?
Nothing helps.
Doesn't
Nothing
help.
Oh,
You
oh.
can't,
Telfin?
you can't literally translate that, that's the
Ah.
problem.
although Ari's quieting down a
Alicia has
little bit.
Yeah.
Alicia and Nadia used to be up on the bima and behind the curtain and. Yeah,
But Label was never giving out chocolates.
No.
Yeah.
Never.
Not till later. Not till later.
Not at all.
Oh, he started? Didn't he start it? Dan started it?
I don't remember Dan doing it either.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Really?
he did. Yeah. You inherited the
Yeah.
tradition
During
of giving
those
out the
years.
chocolate.
Yeah, but I think it was only for the kids at the beginning.
Oh.
No? Now
And me.
and Debbie. Now I have every single congregant who would like to get a
Sure,
Hershey
yeah,
kiss.
I know.
And it's good because this wakes them up, you know, after
You
after
need
the first
a
part
little
of the sermon.
caffeine
A little bit of
in the
caffeine,
Little
sugar, so they can listen to the sermon.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, Ari needs at least 5 or 6 of them.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Okay, let's take a look here about some interesting aspects of the rabbinate.
Like me to read?
Different. Let's.
A rabbi whom they don't want to drive out of town is no rabbi. And a rabbi who lets himself be driven out is no man.
Interesting, right? So
Said
this
rabbi.
is part of the mission and the call, you know, to be
challenging.
challenging, but at the same time, be careful with what you say, right? You know,
I didn't
Marshall,
get that first one.
the what?
The first one. I don't really get that.
If you're
Oh.
controversial and they want to get rid of you,
They don't want to drive you out.
Right.
they don't want.
They don't want to drive you out of town.
Right.
Is no rabbi.
Yeah, meaning
You're
they
not-
want
you're
to
not-
drive you out.
No, they don't
No,
want to.
They don't
In the
Negative.
beginning,
It's a negative.
So they don't want to drive out of town is no rabbi.
Because
you.
you're not
It's not
taking any
controversial.
controversial positions.
He's wishy-washy.
Okay. I was taking drive out of town too literally.
Ah,
Right.
oh no, no,
Wait a
like
minute, he
to
can't visit other
expose.
communities?
no, to expose him
Duh.
or to throw him out
Okay.
from the
Throw him
the
out.
community.
label announcing from the Bima that he believed Israel should negotiate with the PLO. Got people very upset, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was always wrong. That was
Uh,
his problem.
he then admitted at one point that he was wrong. you
So,
know?
yeah.
But it took
Well,
years.
Yeah.
Took him
But
years
but
to-
you know what? I think that have you heard about Marshall Mayer? Marshall Mayer was
No.
a rabbi here in Manhattan, and he's an American rabbi. And he in the 60s he went to Latin America, and he founded the Seminario Rabínico, which is the
Brazil.
place in Buenos
Really?
Aires, which is the place where rabbis are trained in Latin America, in Buenos Aires. And he also started a congregation, Bethel, in Buenos Aires.
Really?
And he was really the the force behind the conservative and the liberal movement in Latin America, beginning in the 60s. So he was a huge figure in Latin America and in the Latin American Jewry. Then he came back here and he died here in the States. So he used to say that, or people used to say that when he would start his sermons in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, would ask, his people, "Are you comfortable?" He said, and people would say, "Yes, we are." So that shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that way.
You should
Right.
get ready
Get
not
ready
to be
to
You
not
should
not
get ready
comfortable.
to be not
That's
comfortable.
great.
And
So what made
challenge.
him do that? That's so interesting that he was an American rabbi and just had this vision to. Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
I never.
And actually, he served here in Connecticut first. I believe
Really?
in. I don't remember the town that he served here.
We'll have to Google him.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
name.
It's a big figure. So yeah,
Wow.
Marshall May. Okay, go ahead. Let's take a look to this
Okay.
second.
It takes twice as much spiritual strength to be an honest businessman as to be an honest rabbi. But if you have that much spiritual strength, why waste it on business? Okay. So answer to a student who felt himself unworthy.
So
of service.
Salanter, you know who Rabbi Israel Salanter was? He was the founder of the Musar movement. Musar is ethics and morals, right? So he was the beginner.
As the rabbi must inspect periodically the slaughtering knives of the ritual slaughterers in his town to see that they have no defect which would render the meat unkosher, so must he go from store to store to inspect the weights and measures of the storekeepers. Everybody must be fair.
Yeah.
When Rabbi Chaim Soloveitchik, one of the 20th century's greatest Talmud scholars, was asked what a rabbi's function is, he replied, to redress the grievances of those who are abandoned and alone, to protect the dignity of the poor, and to save the oppressed from the hands of the oppressor.
Interesting, because there is a social justice component today that I think it's a huge part of the rabbinate. That at least in the progressive movements, if you want the reform, the conservative, another renewal movement, I would guess that it's too. But there is a big social component and aspect to our work there. So I feel like today the role is not only about prayers and leading services and the pastoral aspect of it, but it is also about social justice, right? And it's about helping those who are in need and raising the voice for those who are oppressed in our society today. And many colleagues are super successful doing it, and I try to do it as well, and you know that many of my sermons and Divrei Torah and what I write is about that. How can we be more involved in the
Tikkun
social
Olam.
aspect and tikkun olam? just a big thing.
Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, Rabbi Chaim's grandson, relates a characteristic incident that happened during his grandfather's tenure as the rabbi of Brisk. Once 2 Jews died in Brisk on the same day. In the morning, a poor shoemaker who had lived out his life in obscurity, he died, while at noontime a wealthy prominent member of the community passed away. According to the halacha, in such a case, the one who dies first must be buried first. However, the members of the burial society, who had received a handsome sum from the heirs of the rich man, decided to attend to him first, for who was there to plead the cause of the poor man? When Rabbi Chaim was informed about the incident, he sent a messenger to warn the members of the burial society to desist from this disgraceful behavior. The members of the burial society, however, refused to heed the directive of Rabbi Chaim and began to make arrangements for the burial of the rich man. Rabbi Chaim then arose, took his walking stick, trudged over to the house of the deceased, and chased all the attendants outside. Rabbi Chaim prevailed. The poor man was buried before the rich man. Rabbi Chaim's enemies multiplied and increased. They didn't like this decision.
Correct. So how do you deal with that, right? When you make an unpopular decision with your congregation, and I've gone through that personally, and I think that you have to be true to what you believe.
And what you think the right
what you
thing
believe,
is
and
to do.
it's the right thing to do. As well as when you feel like you should be doing something and you don't have the support of your congregation or your board, in my case, try to gain the support of the board and try, to talk to people who that will support you and are on your side. But politics play a huge role in the rabbinate. When you are in congregations that are very involved and they are very participatory, like ours, people feel like they have something to say and they want to be part of the process and also of the outcome.
And the decision making.
And the decision-making process, and so you have to navigate those waters. And sometimes you make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and sometimes you make things in the right way. And but I think that we have a very committed congregation, and we have many people who want to be part of the process, and many people who want to be part of the outcome of the process itself. I think that it requires a lot of talking and conversation and negotiation, and sometimes you succeed, sometimes you
I
don't.
know a woman who never forgave the rabbi she grew up with because he wouldn't perform her marriage to a non-Jew.
Right.
And he was living up to his principles and the standards of
Yeah.
the Judaism.
Listen,
He said, "No, I
Dick
can't do
is
it."
right here next to me. We have dealt with families that we have said, we cannot do this, we cannot bury him, we cannot bury her, or we cannot do this funeral, we can do this, or we cannot do that. And sometimes, it's very, very hard. It's very hard. But I think we do it, and we have done it, the way that we think is the right way to do it. We have encountered a number of challenges there. No?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day. It's very hard. And the same with marriages, as you said. And the same, with the birth, and conversions sometimes. And, at school, the school, and then the religious school, and the Hebrew school, and the preschool. So you're dealing with it all the
How many
time.
stories do you hear about, people who in mixed marriages didn't go to, the wife didn't go to the bima because she wasn't Jewish, and the guy left the congregation.
Yeah.
You know,
There are stories like that. Yeah.
stories.
But then the other side of the coin is,
right here.
yeah,
right here,
but then the
yeah.
other side of the coin is you should communicate that in advance, and your communication to the congregation has to be effective in a way that people know what is permitted, what is prohibited, what is expected from you, what is not, what our policies are. So when you fail with the communication, you create these, misunderstandings. That's part
In
of
our
it.
bar mitzvah guide, is that spelled out?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yep, the roles of the non-Jewish partner. Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Well, now non-Jewish relatives are invited to do an English reading and to do something, but as a
Right. So
It's
what
changed.
what
It's
we do is
changed.
the non-Jewish parent would go up to the bima and present the talit to the kid. Then we would invite him or her after the blessings are said to stand next to the kid when we are saying the blessing for the kid, or
So
when
that's
I
all-
when I'm
that's all
saying
the
it.
change.
Would
It
they,
wasn't
would the
always like
non-Jewish
that.
parent get an aliyah?
No.
No,
No.
Okay.
no, but they might be standing there when
After
you,
when the
you
prayer is
bless
over,
the
right?
child,
When the,
both parents. can
then they could read a prayer for our country or a prayer for peace, and then at the end we would invite the whole family for the kiddush to stand there on the bima. So that's what we are doing now, and it's
That's a
much
change.
much more than what we did 7 years ago when I first came, and probably it's less than we will be doing in a couple of more
future.
years. So
Who knows?
it's a process.
Who knows?
It's a process.
You know that the president of Yale is descended from Soloveitchiks,
Oh really?
right?
Huh.
Solove,
Sort
is
of
what the name now, but he's from the Soloveitchik family.
interesting.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's read the last paragraph here, and we'll finish.
Why it's hard to be.
How'd you know that?
She went
She went to Yale.
Went to Yale.
Oh, did you go to Yale?
Yeah,
Oh.
for my master's. Why it's hard to be a rabbi. Rabbi Harold Kushner, a veteran of several decades in the pulpit, was invited to address the graduating class of a rabbinical seminary. There will be Friday evenings, he warned the young rabbis about to embark on their careers, when you'll rush your family through dinner so that you can get to services on time to give a sermon about the Sabbath as uninterrupted family time. There will be days when you leave a sick child at home or a child studying for a test when you go to teach religious values to the temple youth group. There'll be Sundays when you'll have to cancel plans for a family picnic to officiate at a funeral, where you will praise the deceased as a man who never let his business interfere with his obligations to his family. And worst of all, you won't even realize what you're doing as you do it.
True.
So this could have been called rabbis, priests, and imams.
Rabbi's prison. Yes. Yeah.
Go
So
into
the other
Go
day,
into it.
I went to the conservative synagogue in Westport. You know, we're very close with Rabbi Wiederhorn. He's a great man. They were honoring him for
Well,
his
for
10
25 years.
10 years.
10
years.
years.
10 years.
10
10 years.
years.
They weren't there 25
And when he came up and spoke after all the awards and the presentation, he said, "This is another time that the synagogue and my family are fighting over my attention."
Uh-huh.
And I thought that's so true, right? So because that's what you try to do, you try to balance between your family time and your congregation and your obligations as a rabbi and your obligations as a parent and as a husband, and sometimes it's very hard, as
Challenging.
Rabbi Kushner
Kushner
says
says.
here, right?
But,
So
but that's life.
that's life. Yeah,
You know, you got business, you got a family.
it's true. But when sometimes people, travel for weeks, right, or 10 days or 2 weeks, and
5
they don't
days,
see
and
their
they come back
children
on
for.
weekends. Yeah, I know somebody who did that for 44 years.
The rabbi don't have a unique problem with this.
No, it's true. Yeah. But
But a rabbi's job is 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Different from
That's right.
the rest of us.
right. But listen, you have to love what you do. If you are a rabbi and you don't enjoy and you don't love what you do, you're going to fail.
Shouldn't be a rabbi.
Same with any profession.
You're going to fail.
Right.
You're going to fail because it's 24/7. So you have to love what you do. Yep. Okay, good.
Are there any rabbis
Good.
in the area who are, quote, in business as well as being a rabbi? I mean,
What do you mean businesses?
I
Like-
grew up with a rabbi who
Yeah.
also owned a summer camp, who also did other things.
No, not that I can think of. I met some of them around in the country or in Israel. That's very common. That some rabbis would have, another job or a profession. They would also be rabbis on the weekends or the holidays. Latin America, less, but there are some, but not here in our area.
So we had a rabbi who left the rabbinate. He moved from here to Birmingham, left the rabbinate and became a lawyer, right? Mark Elevitz, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Well,
Yeah.
didn't Rabbi
Oh, and Jack became a psychologist.
Psychologist.
Okay.
Not,
But
I can't think, it's terrible, I see him and I don't remember.
Okay, but
The
what
former-
happened with him?
The former rabbi at Bnei Israel, came a lawyer.
Yeah.
The rabbi.
So, you know,
rabbi's
in order to be
recruiter.
ordained, well, at least in the conservative and the reform movement, you need a profession, right? So you need to study something in the university and have your diploma and your BA or your master degree in order to be ordained as a rabbi. And the idea behind that is that if for some reason you know it doesn't go well, or you feel like the rabbinate is not for you, you'll have a way how to
I think they say
support
that
your family.
studying law and studying Talmud are really very similar.
Yeah, and I also think that that's a nice way how to open your world view of not only being immersed in Jewish text or in Jewish tradition, but also, you know, to have different elements from the non-Jewish world in the university, which is
Yeah, so the conservative yeshiva, where our son-in-law
or Josh.
teaches many people who come after college to study Jewish texts, and then they come back and they go into all different kinds of
Right.
fields.
Right.
Good.
So, yeah, it's rewarding to be a rabbi. So if you want to consider it,
Uh-huh.
think about it. We are very close to JTS.
He did.
It's never late.
I thought about it when I was younger.
Really?
Yeah.
And what happened?
You saw the light.
He saw the light. He made a wise
You
choice.
were at LTF?
I was at a youth convention, and I think it was in Atlantic City in the early 1960s. And I heard a speaker, I think it was
Yochanan Mopes.
Yochanan Mufs.
Oh,
By Yochanan Mopes.
And something he said just, you know, I and a friend of mine were both thinking the same thing. We walked out of that session and said, you know, I don't think I want to be a rabbi anymore.
mm,
Uh-huh.
wow.
My friend became a cardiologist, and I became
Became
a
a
CPA.
CPA.
service.
That's good.
And then Rabbi Muffs, I'm not sure if it was he or his son, had some dealings in Bridgeport
In Richmond.
with a real estate person who owned a lot of
Okay. And you got to meet him.
Slum property.
properties.
Okay. All right. And you got to meet him.
Yeah.
And work
Yeah.
with him.
I-
That's nice. That's nice. Well, so stay warm.
Yeah.
Be safe, and